Okay, hola all, welcome back to Soul Mechanics. This is the video that we're going to need to be doing in order to cover some of the bases that we missed in skipping over certain things to get to other articles of interest that I had been more interested in investigating and pursuing at the time, not to mention that they had become necessary for certain factors to get across to certain peoples for certain reasons. First and foremost, I should like to note that perhaps the most important article of interest in the entirety of this particular video is going to have to be that I desperately need a fucking haircut, man. I look like a hippie. Anyways, please take notice that this video is entitled Dimension. There's a reason for that. There's a pretty definite and pertinent reason for that. It is not called Dimensions, it's called Dimension. And we may get around to the meaning of that in this, but I doubt it because I'm very limited on time, so we're going to have to chop this into bits as usual. In any case, we live in a dimensional world. Basic dimensional quality defines the reality of our spatial existence, Now this is a problem that I have, big problem that I have, and it really aggravates me that people throw around the term dimension all the time. They talk about how there are alternate dimensions and there are, parallel realities that are alternate dimensions and all that nonsense. These things, they are not dimensions. Okay, that is a gross misuse of the term. Dimension refers to spatial quality. It is space. We have, from what we can tell, a three-dimensional reality, a construct that is made up, for all intents and purposes, of what we perceive as being three dimensions. Now, to begin with, we're going to have one dimension. That's how we begin. We have one dimension. That one dimension is it. Just point zero, nada, nothing. Just that. It's like if you want to speak about the Big Bang, that single point of energy, that infinite mass and density, that one little point of light, or what is actually sound, the word that becomes flesh. It is vibration. It's simply that. It comes into being. It is a single dimension, and it has no other frame of reference. And so, of course, this single thing, it's going to want to have a frame of reference. It's going to want to, let's say, investigate itself for the most part. It's going to want to know what it is. Wouldn't you? And of course, you are it. So, when we get to thinking about these things, again, we're trying to get to that first-person perspective where you can identify with reality as being your own. You own this life. It is yours. You are it. So, it's a cosmological scenario. You are the origin. You made this happen. So, when you want to think about how or why things may have come into being, look to your own intuitive faculties, because you're going to tell yourself the truth about it, whether you like it or not. You're one thing. You exist as one dimension. You have nowhere else to go. You're just it. So, what do? We, this being I, me, I come up with the concept of two dimensions. Thereby, I'm capable of moving about. I have somewhat of a spatial orientation. I can move, left and right, so to speak. I can move, sort of up and down in a manner of speaking, like a flat piece of paper. We know this. If you want to go over dimensions in depth, there are hundreds of thousands of videos for that. That information is covered. If I can cite certain references, I'll do just that. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that in the comments and such, and maybe even make a commentary video on it, citing references for you to look into. But for the most part, what you have there is 2 dimensions. You can move around like on a flat sheet of paper. You're in that quantum flatland that people like to speak of when they get into this when they get into this area of interest. Now, moving about on this, it's not good enough. It doesn't work because you have to be at one point. You're still one-dimensional. So you can move up and down, you can move left and right, but you're still right there as you are. There's no point of reference still. You have nothing to reflect upon. You have no relativity in play. So what happens therein is we come up with the concept of 3 dimensions. At what point we can create things that have a construct that can, for all intents and purposes, allow for us to be in more than one place at a time. And this is where time's going to start to come into play. Now I need to make this very clear before we continue. Time is not a dimension. That is so wrong. And I don't like to use the word wrong because it activates that cognitive dissonance factor, I know. So if you feel as though I've attacked you somehow by saying wrong, please think about why you're feeling that way and whether or not those feelings actually belong to you. It's incorrect, is what it is. Time is not a dimension. Time is a sort of illusory factor that results from the existence of dimension. Now, once we have 3 dimensions, we're capable of effectively moving about in this 3-dimensional construct and essentially being in more than one place at a time. Because, I can be over there standing in the doorway, and I can be sitting here, and even though that's going to happen at 2 different points in time, it's still happening essentially at the same time, because again, there really is only that one dimension. There's going to keep coming back to that. That's the point of the title of the video. There is in fact only one dimension. There's never been any other dimension. That is the holy magic trick. That's the miracle. That's the ultimate illusion, that there is more than one dimension, where in fact there is not. There never has been. There never really will be. Now, what happens that allows for us to be in separate places at any given point in time, and what in fact allows for us to even sort of divide ourselves into separate beings and allow for us to convince ourselves that we are separate beings. What allows for me to convince myself that, say, I took a shower a few minutes ago and now I'm sitting here, where in fact these 2 things transpired at the same time, ultimately, is I'm tricking myself into believing that there is a difference in time. That's where the 4th dimension comes into play. And it's necessary for us all to understand this 4th dimension in order for me to get us where we need to be, so that I can explain to you what it is that I'm hoping to explain to you about the whole incident in 2005 and what transpired there. It's necessary that I bring you guys to some sort of an understanding of the 4th dimension, and hopefully get you to the point where you can actually see it happening. And when you do, holy shit, it's beautiful. It's amazing. One thing I can say about it for certain that I'm not quite, the 3 dimensions and geometry, sacred geometry as it were, geometrical factors in and of themselves, they tend to have a symmetrical kind of aspect to them. They tend to lean towards symmetry and to make, these perfect, kind of like that spiral thing that people talk about a lot. That's kind of like the base structure for existence. I can't really remember what it's called right now, but you know what I'm talking about. The shell thing, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'll cite references. But geometry in and of itself, and mathematics in general, tends to lean towards symmetry. Now, this 4th dimension does not. The 4th dimension is asymmetrical. It's insofar as I can tell from what I've seen of it. And this 4th dimension is what allows for you to see emotions in play, which is very helpful. And I'm actually not quite sure how helpful it is or in what way, because I haven't been able to make a hell of a lot of use of it yet. but it does provide a certain degree of insight into things. Now, this was taught to me via dream sequences. Certain dream sequences I had where I was trained by mostly there were differing mentors or masters in these dreams that showed me how this worked, but for the most part, the one main character that recurred in these dreams took the form of Gordon Ramsay, which I thought was exceptionally enthusing. But for whatever reason, it was Gordon Ramsay most of the time, and he kept showing me this. He kept showing me how the illusion of time would essentially kind of fold into itself, and it would create this illusory factor that more than one thing is happening at a time, where in fact it is still all the same thing. It's still just that one dimension in play. It's just like it's taking a piece of paper and folding it. You know, it's still just a piece of paper. It just appears to be something more than what it actually is. And again, it's just this great big magic trick that is so convincing. It's so convincing that even when you see it happening, you still buy it. You can't, like, there's not really any way to get out of it. It's just, it's so thoroughly convincing and miraculous. It's the most amazing thing you'll ever see. And again, hopefully we're going to get you guys to where, what I'm hoping to do is provide you guys with values that are going to sink into your brain, and then eventually cause for you to have the same sort of dream sequences I had that will show these things to you. But basically, that's what I'm going to give for this video for now, because like I said, I'm going to have to chop it into pieces, and I am running out of time. I have things I need to be doing today, so I am already late. But essentially, the main point of this is that I need to make it clear that time is not a dimension. We really need to drop that. Time is something that exists as an effect of dimension in play. Dimension refers to space. And yes, you can say that space-time is a thing, that time and space are the same thing, and that's true, but that's only because time itself is created by space. So that's, I'm gonna try and figure out the best possible way that I can explain that to you, and I've been providing hints and pointers here and there. I've been posting videos for you that give very good explanations as to get pretty close to explaining it. Not many people have grasped it. There's 2 people I found that actually got it spot on, and so I'm going to give you, in fact, I'll post links to their clips in the comments for this one that you can look at. But for now, that's pretty much what I need to get across. A, there is one dimension. B, time is not one of the 4 dimensions. I will tell you this. You perceive 3 dimensions. That means that you are in fact perceiving from a 4th dimension, doesn't it? Because you wouldn't be able to see the 3 dimensions unless you were looking at it from a 4th. So that's a clue right then and there. And then, you know, we'll get deeper into that in the next video. Hopefully I'll be able to continue later on tonight if I can get everything I need to get done now. But it's excellent to talk to you guys again. Sorry I've been gone for so long. I've been lazy and shitty and slacking off, and you know, I've been kind of depressed. So you know, I'll get back to you ASAP. But that's it. Those points that I've made here. 1 dimension, technically 4. Time is not one of them. Just keep that in mind. And I'll present leads to other things that will help you get it, you know, a little more clearly. Until I can get back to you myself in person. So, thank you very much for watching. Keelah, Taerve, siari, Namasté, mi familia. Have an excellent time and be excellent at having it.